Yeah, happy to see you on M Live again. Karibu. And also we do have the Kisii County Woman Member of Parliament, Donya Aburi. So far, Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa, and we're glad we could have you on set this morning. We will also be joined by Umul Khair Harun, who's a nominated Member of Parliament, and Wanjiru Nguhi, the Fumbua Program Manager, Baraza Media Lab, in a short while. But we'll begin with the ladies here on some of the top stories in the dailies. This is what we have on the very front page of the Daily Nation. Moi's land grab case spells doom for big thieves. All right, so the genesis of this story is that the land battle started in 2014 when the Chelugui family sued Moi and the Jaswant Rai family-owned Rai Plywood, seeking to return a property or compensation at prevailing market rates. So there's a lot of history behind this story. You have to go and read the entire. So we're not going to get much deeper into this story. Trouble awaits families of at least 3 governors, an MP, and other politicians if the Supreme Court allows reports from the Kibaki-era wealth audits to form part of its records, as the move could open the door for recovery of some of the prime lands documented in them. However, this adjacent story is something we will be getting into. New dossier claims Raila won in 2022, citing an anonymous whistleblower identified as an electoral official. Azimio, now in a fresh claim of victory, alleges that Odinga won last year's presidential vote by garnering 8.1 votes, that's about 57%, against President Ruto's 5.9 allegedly, which they say was about 41%. Well, the IEBC had already declared declared Ruto the winner after he garnered 50.43% against Odinga's 48%. So that's a full splash on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let me get to that. But even with that, Vivian, I don't know if you watched this report. We're going to have it was our first story. I want to get your views on the same. So that's quite interesting. We've just seen, we saw what the president had to say a couple of days ago with regards to a plot, allegedly targeting the immediate former chairperson of the IBC. And now we have a dossier that supposedly just comes up from a faceless individual. I don't know what you make of it.
It's a very damning report. I had a chance to just gloss over it, and one of the things that caught my eye was like in a constituency like Langata, where we have about 145,000 registered voters. According to the whistleblower, Baba got 51,963 votes. But according to the official results announced during the election, Baba got 51,223, meaning if it's true, if whatever the whistleblower is saying is true, it means Baba was docked like 740 votes in Langata constituency alone. The difference is the current president, according to the official IBC announcement, he got 27,871. But according to the Form 34A uploaded in the whistleblower's website, President Ruto got 27,171, meaning he got an additional 700 votes. So I'm just,
but my question is,
I'm just wondering, like, if there's any truth to this matter, then it's a very damning report, and I think.
But my question is, isn't it curious that this new dossier comes up months after the election? Why wasn't this evidence, if indeed was there, not tabled before the Supreme Court?
On everybody's mind. But I think every Kenyan wants to know that our votes count. Your votes count. So I think it's still important for there to be like an inquiry, like a forensic audit, just to allay any fears, or if there's any truth to what these, allegations are, then we can get to the bottom of the matter. Remember, still on the IBC, there's the issue of the death threats on outgoing IBC chairman Wafula Chebukati. And even before this, we cannot take it lightly, because remember, we lost Chris Msando during the run-up to the 2017 elections. So I think it's important for there to be a commission, maybe truth, inquiry, something commission, but also a forensic audit on what really transpired. Because if we are being told that the Form 34As that were used to announce the presidential election are not, are not legit, it's important for people to know.
But I thought that matter was settled at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court pronounced itself on the same.
Everybody thought so too. It's just that this raises fresh doubts. Yes.
All right. Let's hear from Mheshimiwa Donya what you make of this whole scenario and the latest developments so far of a shadow that still hangs over our heads 4 months after the election.
First, I have not said good morning. Good morning, all. Donya from Kisii County. Kisii people have said hi. On this, it's like if I could give my own analysis, someone wants to serve some interest. When you want to give statistics or data, you have to get it all. If they really had a good dossier, they should have given us from MCA to the president. Their interest is on the presidential results. That cannot serve well if they've not said, for example, as Tar said, even Langata, the results of the president were like this. They've not given for the Nairobi governor. They've not given for the senator, for the woman rep. That would look authentic. Now that they've narrowed down to the president, the presidential results, people will be asking, yes, you've said for the president, what of for other members, for it to look real. On the other side, them releasing the dossier now after the Supreme Court ruling, there is more to it than it meets the eye. Yes.
All right, Vivian, you.
I think, just having glossed through, this whistleblower website, like I said, just to see, out of curiosity, also to see what it's about. I think the anonymous person said that it's because they felt convicted, to share this information, and previously they were in fear, for themselves, for their families, because of things that have happened to, threats to previous employees or commissioners before. I mean, I don't know whether it's true what they are alleging, but that's why I'm saying.
Do you think this development changes anything whatsoever?
I think what it does is sort of give some sense of hope or believability to Baba's support base, because you see, all through after the results were officially announced to the Supreme Court, to the final announcement, inauguration, and even until now, a lot of people who supported Baba have never believed that the loss was legitimate. And a lot of them just accepted that, okay, let's move on, because Kenya holistically needs to move on. We need to move on from the election and start now nation building. But if there's even an iota of doubt, then I think people who support Baba would basically revert back to, oh, let's hear more. We want to see, is this true? Can there be like an audit, an investigation, an inquiry, something that either legitimizes or delegitimizes these allegations?
Yeah, Mheshimiwa Donya, you wanted to add that?
I was saying, to me, having this debate at this time, we will now start it off from the bill that is being, where we have the special sitting for the Senate, we have the new commissioners. Maybe we now start afresh. People look into the election issues. It's late. To talk about it, the president is already in office.
The train has left the station.
Yeah, there's one thing I observed in Parliament. 2008 elections, we saw ODM had more members of Parliament. This time round, we have Kenya Kwanza having more as members of Parliament. Of course, the Azimio, they have Wiper and all kind of stuff. So if you see the generation of the new president, he has members. So what should we ask ourselves of the more members that the president has? That should also be another debate, because he has he has his own members who made even the speaker from Kenya Kwanza and even from the Senate. So at the moment, I feel, as you've said, the train has already left the station.
All right. Also joining us, like I said earlier on, Wanjiru Nguhi Fumbua, Program Manager, Baraza Media Lab. A very good morning, Karibu.
Good morning. Thank you.
So I hope you can chime in the conversation as we take a look at what's happening in the dailies. And certainly this is one development that we're following up on. I don't know if you've gotten an opportunity to look at that dossier, apparently. So the IBC whistleblower showing Raila won the election. This is what the Azimio says. And the coalition is telling President Ruto to expand the scope of the planned elections inquiry to even include Musando's murder. But even before that, I want to get your thoughts on this issue of this new dossier by a faceless individual, an official of allegedly of the Electoral Commission, and what it really portends for the conversation that we're having with regard to the election process.
I mean, of course, number one, I will speak as someone who has worked in the mis and disinformation space, like during the last election. And I'm really just hoping that what is being alleged, one, has been verified and it is actually true. And it is something that if it is taken to court, it can actually hold water. And if it is something that can hold water, then, you know, it really puts a very large, a very dark shadow on the credibility of the elections. And the fact that if the will of the people was really, really averted, then what is the point of voting? And it sort of makes you understand why the 8 million people who refused to vote, why they actually won. And so it's like, do we even have a democracy in the first place? What kind of democracy is this that we're having? Who chose these leaders? Like, what is going on? What is this, you know, what is this process? If someone can just do the things that are alleged to have been done. And so it would be very unfortunate if it's true, because then, you know, it's like, okay, so does it even matter if we vote or not? Whose voice was actually listened
earlier
to?
on.
Yeah.
Isn't it curious to see this document apparently coming out in the public right now,
Yes.
4 months after the election? Isn't that a little bit suspicious?
It's a bit suspicious. 4 months after the elections, after the presidential petition, and if this was something that was known, then it should have been brought forward at the
Supreme Court.
Yes, at the presidential petition. So of course it is suspicious, and the fact that it's getting as much airtime as it is getting, I just hope that you know, we are not having some narrative or some framing of the current government. Like, we are not undermining the current government with the kind of framing and the kind of attention that this is getting. So it's a bit, I find it suspicious. I find it sad. If it can be verified, then it's really sad for democracy.
Do you read politics at play?
What? I'm sorry?
Do you read politics at play?
Yeah, with the propaganda, the narrative building, probably, but it's a very dangerous game. If this is politics at play, then it's very dangerous. It sets a very dangerous precedent, even for the next for the next elections. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vivian, even with this, so this comes just 2 days after what President William Ruto had to say with regard to the immediate former chairperson of the IBC, Wafula Chebukati, and that the claims on abduction and murder, allegedly. Your thoughts on the same? Well, there have been calls for the president to set up a commission of inquiry into that particular issue. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the same?
I would call for the same. Like I said, you know, Kenyans want to just be sure that our votes matter. Yeah. You know, our voices matter. And if there's any shred of doubt about who gets to decide who is elected into office at every level. Yeah. Mheshimiwa talked about this just being an expose on the presidential. But I think it's because it's focusing on the presidential because it's the presidential that was contested. But that does not mean that all the other levels, you know, get a green light. That's why I was talking about a forensic audit, because then it would clear any doubt about any level. You know, if there's gaps in the presidential, then certainly there may be gaps in, you know, the other levels of the voting. But even for the people calling for, you know, an inquiry all the way back, I think it's important because it's interesting how we can be calling for an inquiry on allegations of abduction and murder, yet for an actual murder that happened, the case has never, you know, borne any fruit, has never progressed or gone anywhere.
But you must understand that the president, by virtue of his position and the kind of information that he would receive perhaps from intelligence, no less, I mean, that's quite a grave allegation.
It is. And remember, earlier in the conversation, you had said, you had mentioned that it's suspect that this anonymous whistleblower would bring up the issue of the presidential election 4 months, after the vote. But think about it, even the president's allegation about abduction of the alleged, abduction, plot to abduct and murder the IBC chairman is happening around the same time. So I don't think there's a time frame within which someone who has information must give it. At the end of the day, what we need is justice. If there was an injustice done, it doesn't matter whether it takes 2 months, 2 days, 2 years, 3 years. The time frame doesn't really matter. What's important is clarity. And if there's any injustice that was done, then it should be rectified so that people have faith in the next commission or the next process. Otherwise, we will witness a lot of voter apathy if this whole situation is not properly handled.
All right.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Donya, do you think as a country we will be able to pass through this election shadow that continues to hang over our heads as a nation, at the aftermath of the 2022 election, with the latest developments from both the political camps?
I see. You see, election after election, since I was born, we've not had an election that has not been disputed. We need to go back, think, rethink, and have proper structures. For example, how many Americans vote? Millions. Millions and millions, over like 160 million people vote. It's done electronically, and then results are released within 3 days, meaning there is where we go wrong. Kenya, with a population of 20 million registered votes, then we have issues. Like now, I don't see a reason why we should have the presidential results tallied from, for example, Kisii, then being relayed to Nairobi for announcement. We should be having, maybe even during the election day, we have the radio, TV stations doing it live. We see everything. They just send. If you realize the last election, you stopped streaming the results. Why did they stop streaming the results? Meaning there was something fishy. If it was authentic, open, transparent, that process would have continued. Then Kenyans would be figuring out, this happened from this corner, this happened from this corner. But when you're left in the dark, that itself shows there's something wrong. So we, as leaders, we need to have a start. Now that even we don't have a commission in office, we do things right from number one, that can have a different results. But if it's the normal thing whereby the politicians are the one who appoints those people, then it's just a cycle that will repeat itself.
All right. Maybe just for fairness, we do have Commissioner Irene Masit who's fighting before the tribunal. She has been suspended, however, but we'll have to see the outcome of that on the same. All right, so we have to take a very quick break here on M Live NTV. We'll be back in a short while, continue with the newspaper review, and now get into some of the issues that have been raised. Then take a look at some of those issues much deeper. Stay with us. The hashtag we're using this morning is M Live NTV. Talk to us. We'll be back in a while.
Yo, Butru Seke, the sharp guard up in the mix. Now I'm saying NTV, shout out to you, bro. Keep it locked. Hey.
Sauti yako ina sound vizuri kwenye masikio.
I like it. Come to the dance floor, babe.
Angie.
Leo tuna festa pe banga. Festa pe banga. Another banga. And it's just like an amazing mix. I am happy today.
Sin kama vitu unanilea. Inaweka shida chini na tupa mikono juu. Banjuka tu.
No compromise, this the hottest combo.
Unistima, uninare. On MTV, don't touch that dial. Not yet. Not yet. No,
People jump down family wagwa. You know how we do it each and every Saturday. On your stereo 96.3 Nation FM mazi kama kawaida kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 4. MC Jawoti na DJ Kamozi and the Wally for most spice. Au sio?
Living on the fountain, you got to compromise.
Alafu 10 p.m.
Hey, manze tunaingia pale kwenye screen. Tunaenda kusababisha pale ndani ya MTV mtu wangu.
Pull up, wheel and come again.
Talking about 254 reggae music, we'll be having none other than non-meaning Genge True. Mazi na rhythm yake mpya inaitwa One Day Rhythm. Au sio? Usikose mazi 10 p.m. Tune in.
One day at a time, hatunaga pressure.
Recharge and get upgraded to make memories with your loved ones this new year. Anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Next on Daring Abroad.
I've actually just completed my master's in international journalism.
A tale of 3 beneficiaries of the prestigious Chevening Scholarship.
I recently joined the London School of Economics and Political Science.
Including your Daring Abroad host.
Yes, I lived here for 1 year, doing everything for myself, including cooking.
Birds of a feather. All journalists, all pass through the School of Information Sciences, Moi University.
I'm not the same person who left Kenya 1 year ago.
All right, welcome back to the show. You're watching M Live on NTV. We're still taking a look and reviewing the headlines this morning. Another story here. Senators split on the proposal to change the law on IBC selection. Now, this will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning. So I'm just going to hold on to that for a little while, and then get to some of the other stories also highlighted in the Daily Nation. Suspects in baby Sagini attack trade blame over dreadful attack. And this is with regard to yesterday's drama when suspects charged over the ghastly attack of Junior Sagini started accusing each other of gouging out the minor's eyes during a pre-trial hearing at the Kisii Law Court. You can see some of the suspects there in handcuffs. Baby Sagini was found writhing in pain in a farm with eyes gouged out a couple of weeks ago. Adjacent to that, IPOA to investigate Roy Man's death after police beating. Yet another story there. And moving forward, still in the Daily Nation, police, 4 suspects behind terror attacks. Now, these 4 Al-Shabaab terrorists are behind the recurrent attacks in parts of northern and coastal Kenya. The nation has learnt. Maalim Ayman, Mohammed Abdi Aidan, Elias Mohammed Yare, Ramadan Kioko, and Abdu Nuseiba and Abdullahi Bulati belong to one of the militia's most lethal fighter wings known as Jaish-e-Man. Now, the 4 among 5 wanted terrorists that the National Police Service recently declared armed and dangerous, as it appealed to the public to share any information about their whereabouts to aid their capture. All right, and that's all with the issue of security in the country. And just lastly on the Daily Nation, Oxfam, a new report here, wealthiest 4 richer than 22 million people combined. Well, Kenya's top 4 richest individuals have more wealth than nearly half of the population. A new report by the Global Movement on Elevation of Poverty, Oxfam, has revealed. Now, Oxfam says the 4 super rich persons who have not been named have a combined wealth of 333 billion, which is more than what 22 million poorest Kenyans were the bottom 40% on. And another different Oxfam report in January last year actually listed a couple of the names. Samir Mirali, you have Dipar Shah, you have Jaswinder Singh, and the Kenyatta family as the top 4 richest in the country with a combined wealth of 311 billion Kenya shillings. In the new finding also, it shows that the growing economic inequalities in the country, revealing that Kenya's richest 130 individuals own wealth equivalent to 70% of the country's current budget, which is 3.3 trillion. I mean, Wanjiru, what do you think of that?
Sorry, I was held up in this...
Oh, the IBC story? Yeah, the ones we're going to get into? Okay, Vivian, I hope we were following up on this.
Well, what I can just say is not really just Kenya.
It's a global issue.
There's a presentation I saw about the world and how I think 80 or 90% of the world's wealth is held by
1%.
1%.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to Kenya. It's like a global thing, but that does not make it right. You know, the reason why we call for, you know, equity, equal distribution of resources, even as Kenyans, is because the truth is we all pay tax. We all contribute to nation building. There needs to be, you know, some sort of equity, you know. Of course, you can't all be the same or earn the same or have the same amount of wealth because circumstances are different. And even the businesses that and people are doing are different. But to have this kind of disparity, I think, is just unethical. There needs to be a way that it's not just for people in Kenya that have, you know, so much wealth. And the same goes for the issues of land. You know, land issues are so emotive in Kenya, but we've always had that issue of just a few or a small clique of people in Kenya own like vast amounts of land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Growing inequality. Mheshimiwa Donya, do you want to add on that?
And Zainab, if you would follow well, everything emanates from land issues. Those with big chunks of land are always declared as the most wealthiest in Kenya, starting from, you see the issues that we have here, the Moi family. When you are in leadership, you identify idle land, which later belongs to your family. You take it by force, it's yours, and there's nothing you can do about it. So leaders, as leaders, sometimes we think when you are in power, you serve your own interest. It's high time we thought of Kenyans more than us, because as a leader, you are supposed to serve, not to have everything for yourself.
All right. All right. Wanjiru, I know you're still looking at...
No.
You would like to add on to that?
Yes.
All right.
The thing about the 1% that she was talking about is that sometimes we like to think that extremely wealthy people make money. But the truth of the matter is, especially you know, saying reflecting on what she has just said, most of the time, wealthy people do not really make money, but they take this money from people who are deserving. So if you are the wealthiest and you are the 1%, you are, I mean, the unequal distribution means that you are getting wealthy at the expense of other people. Because if you're talking about people having large tracts of land, and yet we have homeless people, we have people who have nowhere to go, we have people who are literally squatters in their own country, then it means that your wealth is at the expense of somebody else. And that is why we say it is very unethical. Like, we should not even have billionaires if policy was actually done right and taxation was actually done right. Because also the wealthiest people pay the least amount of tax, or barely pay tax at all. So it's a question of, so what does the taxation look like, and what does the equal distribution of, you know, of wealth look like, and also what have they taken from the rest of the population in terms of what we could be getting, you know, for public service. Because a lot of the wealthy people in Kenya, their wealth can be tied to their relationship to government.
Exactly.
Without government, then they would not be, or their relationship to government, their wealth would not be, you know, as much as it is. So they're definitely taking from us, and they keep taking as long as, you know, they keep maintaining their power and their hold on
so very glaring economic inequality is the gap.
Zainabu, you know, when there was that buzz on social media when they were saying, if they close down Uganda, Kenyans will go hungry. from where I sit, if we utilize our land well, Kenya, we are self-sufficient. I went to South Korea. Most of its land is water, but they manage their food because they eat seafood, then they do importation on what they don't have. Like they import coffee from Nyeri. You can wonder, as you move along our country, you will realize half of our land is utilized, half of it is left idle. Till the day we will utilize our land, we'll still be begging, we'll still be going hungry. So the issue of land, and that is owned by most of our leaders, they should not sleep well, knowing very well that the land that they've kept idle, maybe we should have even done farming, or the NYS, they are told, go to that place, do some farming, and then the returns are made to the government. That needs also to be looked into.
Yeah, Vivian.
My comment on it was, like Mheshimiwa said, you know, land is tied to wealth. Yeah. There's a correlation. Now, the interesting thing is in Kenya, I think only 4% of women own land. It's sad, like it's a really sad statistic, which means it boils down to when we're looking at the issues, you know, gender issues, then it means only a fraction of women in the Kenyan population actually have, you know, land that can be correlated to wealth. So it means there's a gap, like, in our policy.
And you actually touch on something so very interesting. This is what's on the front page of the Business Daily. Half of married men drop wives in home and land ownership. So 51% of men now own homes alone, from 36% in 2014. So that would be very interesting to see why this is happening, and does it work against, you know, women in this country?
So it undermines the whole question of equality.
Yes.
Equality from a perspective of opportunities,
right,
and wealth.
Even security.
Yes, even security. Yeah.
Right. I mean, how do you now start to empower people to leave abusive situations or to leave violent situations, or even to even the security of knowing that, you know, that this is my home, this is my home. So it's a very it's a gender question.
All right. Yeah. Just moving forward, let's wind up on the Daily Nation. Maize prices drop ahead of importation. Traders and consumers are emerging as the key beneficiaries of falling maize prices as farmers rush to sell the produce ahead of next month's opening of the import window. Now, the price of a 90-kilogram bag of maize has now dropped by at least 1,000 shillings, leading to a slight reduction in maize flour prices by millers. Maize prices have dropped from 5,800 to 4,800 as farmers offload thousands of bags. In turn, the price of flour has declined from 2,000 to about 2,050 shillings to about 1,950 per bale ex-factory. And the Ministry of Agriculture has allowed traders to import 900,000 tons of duty-free white maize and 600,000 tons of milled rice from next month up to August of this year. So that's another issue that we'll also continue following up on. And Business Daily, like I said, this is what we have on the front page. Half of the married men are now dropping their wives in home and land ownership. So 51% of men now own homes alone, from 36% back in 2014. That's about 10 years ago. So the share of married men who now own homes and land solely has shot up in the last 8 years. And that's a finding by the Kenya Demographic Health Survey that was released. That's the 2022 survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on Tuesday. And that also shows that married men who own agricultural land alone jumped from 28% 9 years ago to 41.5%, pointing to a growing trust deficit among, you know, people in a married relationship. All right, so this comes also at a time when the number of divorce cases have also risen. Another story here on the Business Daily: Kenya's dollar multi-millionaires double in 10 years. It's a report there cited by the Business Daily, so I'm not going to get much deeper into that. Hustler funding also gobbles up lion's share of Ruto budget. The Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Ministry was the biggest beneficiary of development cash in President William Ruto's first 3 months in office, as the administrative move to set up a foundation for the Hustler Fund. On Taifa Leo, this is what we have on the front page. Chebukati aacha noma. Kinara wa IBC aacha tume bila makamishna. Vigogo wa siasa wa msifu, wengine wamemshutumu. And there you have it. Kungatuka kwa Wafula Chebukati kama kiongozi wa tume huru ya uchaguzi kumeacha nchi katika hali mbaya hivi kwamba asasi hiyo muhimu haitaweza kutekeleza majukumu yake kikatiba endapo patatokea haja ya dharura. I'm sorry if you didn't understand Kiswahili. I see one juror is floating there. Don't worry, we'll get back to that story. And on the East African, okay, so that's not loading. So allow me to take a look at that story now that I had promised that we'll be setting the basis of our conversation, and then we're going to get to that right now. Okay, so NTV has learnt that the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate is set to table major changes to the law that guides the formation of the selection panel that will be in charge of the selection, interviewing, and picking new commissioners of the IBC. The committee's report is proposing to give the majority Kenya Kwanza coalition the upper hand in parliamentary nominations, while adding an extra slot to the political parties liaison committee, contrary to the legislation passed in December 2022 by the National Assembly. Let's take a look at that report by Sydney Chazima.
As the Senate gears up for the special sitting Thursday, details from the report set to be tabled by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee have put to light some changes that may put the two houses of parliament on a collision path. One bone of contention is the number of slots allocated to the political parties liaison committee.
All the 80 plus political parties have only been given one slot out of the 7 slots on that selection panel. It tells you that there is somebody somewhere who would want to have pliant people on that selection panel that will ensure they give him a pliant commission in 2027.
NTV has now learned that Senate's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, headed by Bomet Senator Hilary Sigei, is proposing to allocate one more slot to the political parties liaison committee, which had earlier been given one slot. Going by the advice of the Attorney General Justin Muturi, the minority and the majority side in Parliament were supposed to get one slot each.
The majority side selects only one representative to the selection panel, and the minority side also selects one. So that nobody, because that, you know, the elections in Kenya are extremely, you know, the way we have made it is like it's the end of the world. So that nobody claims that they have been shortchanged.
Contrary to Muturi's advice, the report is seeking to remove one slot from the Parliamentary Service Commission. This proposal now means that the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, which is the majority, will get the only slot allocated. This also means that the Interreligious Council now has one extra slot than Parliament, an issue that appears not to bode well with the political class.
We have respect for the churches. The churches have 2 slots. Are you really saying that the interreligious community has a greater stake in elections than political parties? It just doesn't make sense to us.
The legislature is angling to replace the previous IEBC selection panel that was declared unconstitutional by Justice Mrima. Late last year, the National Assembly approved proposals that meant the Parliamentary Service and the Interreligious Council have 2 slots, while the Public Service Commission, the Law Society of Kenya, and the Political Parties Liaison Committee each got 1 slot. Members of the opposing Azimio One Kenya Alliance walked out of the National Assembly before the motion moved by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah was approved. Should the Senate reverse the bill on Thursday, the reconstitution of the IEBC will face an unprecedented delay. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, so today will be quite an interesting day because in the afternoon, the Senate has convened a special sitting that will be looking at approving those amendments to the IEBC Act Bill 2022, I beg your pardon. So I just want to let me begin with Wanjiru. So you have some of the amendments that were made by the National Assembly, and now we understand that the Senate has tweaked that a little bit, and which means that the 2 slots that were supposed to be given to the Parliamentary Service Commission has, gone down to 1 slot, which essentially means